I think it's fair to say there's an element of, well, significant element of disappointment, frustration, from our performance and our result against Crystal Palace yesterday. Of course, finished 2-0 to Palace, and deservedly so. They fully deserved the win. And it is very disappointing. I can't deny it. I feel that very much that way going into the game, obviously off the back of beating Fulham and new head coach feeling. It was that expectation of, if we can get the 3 points against Palace, like I said in the preview, it kind of felt like we could possibly start to be considered as an outsider for getting that sort of 8th spot and possibly getting the Conference League qualification this season. An outsider, as I say, I really want to stress that. So that defeat against Crystal Palace and the performance it was, I think, personally, was a stark reminder for all of us of where West Ham are this season. And where we are, let's be honest, is a below-average Premier League side at the moment. We are way off the pace in terms of where others are in trying to be successful and get into that top half and get those European spots and to kick on. We're just nowhere near where we need to be as a club at the moment. There's no denying it. It's been a tough period for West Ham, and I just feel like with all the buoyancy we've had since having Graham Potter comes to the club, which I'm still really pleased about. I really want to make that very clear. This is not a video to be slagging off Potter and slagging off players. If you come in to see that and me getting really angry and stuff, unfortunately, I'm not going to be doing that for you. I'm not. I don't feel that way. I'm not sitting here furious and angry. I'm more just a bit deflated and a bit sort of sad, because it just reminds me of where we are as a football club. It reminds me of the task at hand for Graham Potter and his team. There's a lot to be done, because despite it being a pretty drab performance from West Ham, and underwhelming and quite flat really, and looking difficult to watch at times, I actually feel there's a lot of factors at play that really do need to be considered. I think it might have been Gio on Hammer's chat once said about, I think he said it a few times actually, about not to get too carried away, whether you're winning or losing. You win a game and you win one match and people go, oh my God, I'm very guilty of it. I can start looking at the table. I start dreaming, oh, maybe we can get there. Maybe we can do this. I start getting a little bit carried away. Which I think sometimes you want to try and avoid a little bit. It's nice to be obviously excited, but sometimes you can get a bit carried away. And I think it's the same when you lose as well. I think you can lose and sometimes you can get a bit carried away and go, oh, it's an absolute disaster. It's a nightmare. Sometimes it's usually in the middle somewhere. Do you know what I mean? It's not as bad as that or as good as that. It's just somewhere in the middle. And I feel like that's where we are a little bit with this. I don't see yesterday's performance and result as a disaster. I just see it as a bit disheartening and a bit flat. And the reason I feel that way, because I think, as I say, there's a few factors at play, and I think they do need to be really considered. That's what I want to talk about a little bit here. And obviously then talk about how West Ham go and respond, I feel, and how we go about that. So first of all, we've got to remember Graham Potter's only been in the job 9 days, something like that. Barely been here at the club. 9 days is nothing, is it? And bearing in mind as well, in that time since he's been here, we've played 3 matches. Three matches, and yes, 2 of them have been at home, but one was away to Aston Villa, a team in the Champions League this season. Very tough fixture. You've then got Fulham, who are doing very well, and Palace are in good form. So I feel like there needs to be some sort of consideration to these circumstances. Then you've got the added factor. Then you've got Graham Potter joining the club, bringing his own ideas in, his own team in. You've then got the other guys that are now leaving. There's a lot of upheaval in that space of just over a week. I mean, not even 2 weeks into his reign at the club. There's other factors at play as well. Of course, with our injuries, you've got Jared Bowen, you've got Fulkrug, you've got Antonio. Somerville was obviously absent, which was a big loss for us. It's not good. And also, it was known that Carlos Soler's dealing with a slight knock or whatever it was, a slight strain. So that's hence why he didn't start. Lucas Paqueta was struggling for fatigue. I do feel like there was a lot of factors at play, and I felt like it was quite evident watching that game. That's how it felt. Looking at the 2 teams, you could see Palace are a far more settled side, team that know their roles very comfortably and know each other well. They know their manager now. They know what they just look more settled. They're in good form as well. Obviously, a very good away record at the moment this season. So it was tough. I do feel like these things do need to be taken into account. But it's obvious that Graham Potter's got a hell of a lot to do. It really has. Going through, you look at this team, and it's just not good enough. You know, there are some players out there that I just feel that are not quite there. There's a lot of work to be done, not just even in terms of the coaching side of it, but I think in terms of recruitment. I'm not just focusing on January. I appreciate that there is an urgency to get a forward in. I think is vital. And I'd even go as far as saying defender as well. I think the defence is our biggest concern really for me at the moment. I'm more concerned about the defending rather than the scoring, actually, to be honest, after watching that. Because I feel like, although I can see that Potter is trying to deal with that first and foremost, I feel like he is trying to address the fact that we are too easy to open up. We're too easy. Just too easy to play against in terms of how teams attack us. We're just not capable at the moment of keeping teams out. I felt like there was a shift in that game. I felt like we were difficult to break down at times. I do feel that we defended pretty well, but it didn't last. And we're looking at the likes of Mavropanos, and I do want to talk about him a little bit this week. But in terms of this video, it was yet another performance from him where he just got a mistake in him. It's just too often now for me from Mavropanos. I'm getting a bit exhausted with it. I really want to see this part of his game go, but there's only so much you can kind of take, you know what I mean, until you start thinking, do you know what? I don't think there's much you can do about it. This guy has just got an error in him, unfortunately, every game. It's just too often now, isn't it? And the problem is, I feel like with that, when you've got a player that's always prone to a mistake, I think it makes others around them nervous as well, because they just don't know when he's going to do it. I think it affects Kilman, because again, I think Kilman had a poor game as well. It's just worrying. You're watching that performance and think there's a few players out there that are just not quite up to scratch and not playing well enough. And I think Graham Potter, don't get me wrong, he's no mug, Potter, and I'm sure he's very aware, taking on this job, that he was coming into a big task. And I think this game was one that really highlighted that. Like, you have got a big job in your hands here. This is not a couple of tweaks and we're going to be fine. This team needs revamping. We need a new goalkeeper in the summer. We can't keep relying on Fabianski. Areola has proven to be too unreliable as far as I'm concerned. So that's a factor. The defence isn't good enough. I'm just not confident in the centre-back pairing of Kilman and Mavropanos. I don't like it, the dynamics of it. As I say, I think that Mavropanos's errors are leaving Kilman quite vulnerable, because I feel like Kilman's better when he's got a decent defender next to him. If he's got someone next to him who can trust and possibly even lead, I feel like Kilman fits in well. I think the dynamics are a little bit different now. I feel like with Mavropanos, you're kind of expecting Kilman to be more of the leader and to sort of dictate how things go. And I just don't see it in him. I don't see him as that kind of player. And I think the more we're seeing now of Kilman, I'm recognising that he's not a bad defender. I'm not trying to say he's a bad defender. He's not. But I feel like he needs someone next to him that's going to command and take charge of the back line, and he can kind of follow suit. And I feel like that makes him a better player. So that's another area that Graham Potter needs to address, which I feel will be more of a summer situation, to be honest. But for the here and now, you're thinking we need to get Todibo back. I mean, that was a game when I really sort of thought we really missed Todibo. We missed, because I feel like he could be that player. Because I do think Kilman's better with Todibo next to him as opposed to Mavropanos. And I don't want us to be slagging off Mavropanos. I really don't. I could see how deflated he was coming off that pitch after getting sent off. But it was a stupid sending off, the second yellow card. And then we've got the issue with the lack of legs in this team. There's just such a lack of pace, and it was just so evident. I mean, I'm not knocking the players' effort in that game yesterday. Graham Potter talked about that in terms of how well that the players tried, and they really didn't want to give in. And I respect that. I do agree with that. I was watching that, seeing a team that were committed. I just think that we're just running out of legs. We look tired. There's a lot of players very exhausted out there, but I also feel like we lack that energy. We lack that pace. But I've got to say, in a big positive to it, though, was the academy players getting their go. Seeing Lewis Orford come on was fantastic. Obviously, Ollie Scar's coming on as well again. They made a difference. Let's get this straight. Ollie Scars was outstanding. He is just such a good defender, and he's got a great energy about him. I love seeing these academy boys come on, because they come on with like a total lack of fear. They've got nothing to lose. They want to prove themselves. There's just this hunger and desire to do well. And I feel like when you look at the performances of Emerson in particular yesterday, I feel like his position's vulnerable. And if anything, I actually feel like he should be losing that shirt to Skulls, because he made the difference, Skulls. There's no two ways about it. He made a big difference coming on. In terms of then West Ham and what we do, it's difficult, isn't it? Because, as I say, I was kind of hoping that a victory over Palace, which I did predict. I thought we were going to get a 2-1 win. I was expecting more than what we got. I feel like for me, this is just me personally, that loss has just snatched away now that feeling of, you never know, we might be able to get a run together here and get that 8th spot. I just feel like that defeat, not because of the points, but because of just the psychological impact of it. Just seeing a team like Crystal Palace that are just so far ahead of us at the moment. They just are, you know. And don't get me wrong, I'm not here saying that Palace battered us. I actually thought in the first half we played all right. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Palace played that great. I thought we both teams weren't that brilliant, but I thought we were holding our own. We looked okay. We were in the game. We had a few chances. They had a few more chances than we did. Fabianski had to pull off a good save from Mateta in the first half. But overall, I thought the first half was okay. I came at half time a bit, you know, okay, we're in the game, you never know. But you could kind of sense that Palace had a bit more in them, a bit more another gear to go. I just feel like with West Ham, we run out of legs in that game. We struggled. And I think that the change to bring in Soler for Rodriguez, I'm not convinced actually was the right decision, because I'll be honest, I wanted that to be the change team anyway. I didn't want to see Soler on the bench. I didn't realise actually he was nursing a slight strain or whatever. He couldn't play the game, couldn't start, so he could only play a certain amount of time. But I actually thought we were okay in the first half. I didn't really want to see it change too much. And obviously then Soler came in. Okay, maybe this is going to be a bit of a shift. I think it actually backfired, because the protection that Rodriguez and Alvarez, which were giving the defence, I felt just helped us a little bit. It just helped it make it a bit more difficult for Palace. I felt like once we made that change, it just seemed to open things up, and it were causing us all sorts of issues. I've got no complaints about the result. I'm going to be honest. I really don't. I think Palace, as I say, deserved that game. I don't think many will argue that, but I'm not here. I don't agree with the fact that we were horrendous. It was awful, and we got no worry about relegation. I'm not really feeling that, to be honest. I'm more just a bit deflated, because it just, as I say, feels like a stark reminder of where we are at the moment, which is not a good place. Let's be frank. This team is not in a great shape at the moment. We've got a lot of issues when it comes to this team in regards to the lack of pace, which is just so evident. We've got such a limited forward options, and again, it's difficult because of the injuries we've got. But that is a big problem, and I just feel like this defence they're just not good enough. The centre back pairing of Mavropanos and Kilman can't really carry on. It doesn't feel like a comfortable pairing at all. I feel like you've got two players there that have got a bit of anxiety about them when they play. I feel vulnerable watching them, and I don't like it at all. I really want to see more confidence in that back line. I really hope that we can get Todibo back soon. I don't know what the situation is with Todibo in terms of update at the moment. We're waiting to get that back soon. Once we do that, we'll talk about more about injuries and obviously transfers and stuff like that this week, and which we'll do tomorrow. But that's a big one for me, getting Todibo back, because I just don't like this pairing. I'm really disappointed again, in fact, Mavropanos. It's a shame, because I really feel like there's a decent defender there in him. Do you know what I mean? In Mavropanos, you watch him, think he's not a bad player. Do you know what I mean? He's not. He's just vulnerable. He's always got this error that and you can sense it all the time when he's playing. And I'm just getting to the point of now, I don't see how it's going to get better with him. I kept saying during the game, hopefully Potter can get this out of him and just try to change his game a little bit so he just stops doing it. But I don't know. I don't know how you can deal with that in terms of a coach, if that is manageable, because it just seems like he is just a walking mistake. He really is, and it's so often now, and it's very difficult. But look, I don't want to be negative. I don't want to come in here and moan and whinge and scream and shout about it. I don't feel like that. I don't. I'm kind of one eye on the summer. I'm going to be honest, which I hate saying, because I've got half a season to play, and I shouldn't be feeling like that. But I'm kind of already there, you know. As part of me just think I can't wait to see the back of the season. I want to see us have a full summer. There's plenty of work to be done, but revamp this squad, get it in the way that Potter wants it to be, which is far more technical players, more pace, more energy in the team. I feel like we'll see a very different West Ham. At the moment, I feel like he's dealing with a real mess of a squad at the moment. And one, let's be honest, that are depleted in confidence. And we look a team that's vulnerable, don't we? When things go against us, we struggle to cope with it. We don't look like a team that's we're going to respond well and get back in this. I just feel like we do struggle a little bit. Yeah, that's where we are at the moment. As I say, a bit deflated today. I can't deny it. But I'm not on the floor. I don't feel like it's all over and that's it. It's one of those where I feel like we've got to dust ourselves down a little bit and look forward. Hopefully, West Ham can respond well. We've got Aston Villa away next weekend, which is going to be a very tough fixture. We've experienced it away there. Obviously, they're doing well this season as well. They've got Champions League in their sight, so we know we're in for a tough game, but I would like to think another week on the training ground with these players, and I feel like we might be able to see a little bit of an improvement and hopefully start to see more of a settled side, because there is something better there. There's no denying, right? I want to make this very clear before I wrap this video up. Had Lopetegui been in charge yesterday, I think we'd have been battered. I think we would have been absolutely, 4 or 5-0 battered. With Potter, I feel like we are we're better organised. I feel like the players understand their roles better. I can sort of sense that straight away. I feel like the players are responding well to Potter. That hasn't changed. I just feel there was a lot of circumstances in that game that really did hamper us, and I think they had to be taken into consideration. That's where we are. But look, that's where I am. I wanted the dust to settle a little bit. I didn't want to get too carried away, and like I said, like you do with wins and whatever, not to get too caught up in the emotions. I think it's time to be a little bit grounded, stand back, and realise where we are. Which, let's be honest, at the moment is a pretty below par Premier League side, but onwards and upwards. Come on, your minds.